Welcome to Mage Wars. I'm Alan Gerding. Today we're going to talk about spell types and how to play them. Let's get started. There are 6 types of spells: equipment, incantations, attacks, creatures, conjurations, and enchantments. How you use your spell card depends on the type of spell you are casting. If you haven't already, be sure to watch our video on spell casting to learn how to cast spells. Once you've cast a spell, however, play the card as follows. When your mage enters the arena, he pretty much has nothing protecting him. He has no equipment cards, he has no creature surrounding him, he's pretty much naked. So the only way that you can protect him, perhaps right away, is by casting equipment spells. You can see here that an equipment card has all the basic parts of any spell card. Now I won't go into detail on all the different parts of the spell card here, but if you're curious, please check out our video on spellcasting to learn more about the different parts of the spell card. But as you can see, this Staff of Beast has a name and type up at the top, just like all spells, and it has a casting line just under that. What makes equipment unique are 3 things. First, equipment can only be played on mages. This is equipment specifically for your mage, not for any of your other creatures. The arena is where all the action happens. This is why we normally keep the equipment cards off of the game board. This helps remind you of what your mage has equipped, and it helps reduce clutter on the board. Okay, so that's the first difference in equipment cards. Equipment cards can only be cast on mages. This means typically you're only going to be casting them on your own mage. However, if you're playing a team-based game, you can cast your equipment cards on your friendly mage. Actually, in a duel, you can even cast equipment cards on your opposing mage. But this brings us to our next point. And that brings us to our second difference, and that's location. All equipment spells are equipped to a certain location on your mage's body. You can't have more than one piece of equipment on any location. That makes complete sense because no person wears 2 pairs of boots. This is right except for rings. You can have 2 rings on your mage. However, and this is the important part, you may never have 2 of the same item equipped on your mage. Look at the equipment spell name. You can't hold 2 of something of the same spell name. For instance, you can't hold 2 Mage Wands, and you can't equip 2 Arcane Rings either. So check this out. My Beastmaster already has the Staff of Beasts equipped. However, maybe I want to give him this Iverium Longbow instead. As you can see, the Staff of Beasts takes up a weapon location, and the Iverium Longbow takes up both a weapon and a shield location. So what happens is when I cast this Iverium Longbow, the Staff of Beasts isn't destroyed, it's just sent back to my spellbook. So basically, I've unequipped the Staff of Beasts and equipped something else in its place. So when it comes to casting equipment cards on an enemy mage, the rule is you cannot cast an equipment card on an equipment slot that's already occupied. For example, if I were to cast a helmet on an opposing mage, he cannot already have a helmet equipped. This brings us to our third difference in the equipment cards between all the other spells. Equipment cards give your mage a little something extra. It could be extra armor, or it could be an alternative attack that the mage can use. For instance, if you look at your Beastmaster's ability bar, it'll show that he has a basic melee attack of 3. However, when he equips the Staff of Beasts, he now has another attack to choose from, a Savage Strike for 4 attack dice. He can choose one or the other, but they don't add up. You can't combine his basic melee attack of 3 with his Savage Strike of 4 for an attack of 7. It's one or the other, 3 or 4, not 7. However, if I cast this Bearskin on my Beastmaster, you'll see that the Bearskin gives my mage the armor plus 2 trait. This armor trait will stack with my mage's base armor of 0 and with any other armor enhancing bonuses he may have. That's because in Mage Wars, when you see a trait, if it has a plus or minus symbol in it, it stacks or takes away from one another. If you don't see a plus or minus, they don't stack. You just choose one or the other. Those are the basics of the equipment spells. There are some other details we didn't cover, like spell binding, but don't worry about that. I think it's time that we move on to another spell type. How about incantations? Incantations are one of the most basic spells in Mage Wars. They have a brief temporary effect on the game. When the spell resolves, follow the instructions on the spell card, then place it on your discard pile. Incantations are amazing. You simply play them and the effect happens. So there's a lot of different applications. But the strategy lies in when you use your incantation spells. Here's a great example. My Beastmaster is backed up against the edge of the arena here, and the Warlock has closed in on him. I know I can't run away, and to make matters worse, he's cast a wall of fire behind us. Now, I could summon a creature to help me fight my way out. Maybe I could cast a piece of equipment to give me more armor. However, I know that there's an incantation in my spellbook that will fit this situation perfectly. My Beastmaster decides to cast Force Push, which allows me to push a creature one zone in the direction of my choice. Not only is that Warlock going to take damage from being pushed through that wall of fire, that same wall of fire that he cast, but now he might even start burning. That wall he put up for a defense now became my greatest offense. And if that Warlock wants to come and get my Beastmaster, he's going to have to go all the way around that wall. And by then, I'll be ready for him. Now that I've cast my Force Push, I go ahead and I discard it off to the side of the arena, making sure that my discard pile is completely separate from my opponent's. That way, we don't get them mixed up. And that's just one of the cool combinations you can do with incantation spells. Remember, once you use them, they are then discarded. So make sure you save them for the right situation. But incantations aren't the only spell that you immediately discard after you use. Let's talk about the next spell type, attack spells. Attack spells are your classic fantasy battle spells. You can cast giant fireballs, terrifying tendrils of lightning, and call down mighty gusts of wind. Take a look at this fireball spell. It looks exactly like any other spell. It has a casting line, so it has mana, and a type, and a subtype, all of that. However, the difference is in attack spells, you'll notice that it has an attack bar. Here will tell you exactly how many attack dice you're going to roll if the attack spell is successful. It also has an effect box, and this can tell you exactly what effect will happen if the cast is successful. Attack spells are super easy to cast and really give your mage the feeling of blasting your opponents to bits. My Warlock here wants to cast this fireball on the enemy Beastmaster, so he pays the mana for it, then all we do is roll the dice. See how much damage we've done? And then we find out whether our spell had an effect or not. For instance, if you roll a 9 on the effect die, I get to place 1 burn token on the Beastmaster. He's on fire now. I discard my attack spell just like an incantation. It's that easy. Different attack spells can have different effects. They can burn, daze, stun, so many different conditions. But we'll go into the different conditions in a different video. Right now, I'm getting pretty excited because we're going to talk about the most basic way that you'll probably be causing damage to your opposing mage. That's right, it's time to talk about you summoning some creature spells. Mage Wars has a huge variety of different and strange, powerful creatures. Some mages will build a huge army or horde of creatures, and some mages will rely on only a single super strong creature to protect them. No matter what your strategy though, creatures are always a safe bet to help you get more attacks in the game. And that will eventually help you kill the opposing mage. Let's take a look at this creature. It's Brogan Bloodstone. He has all the usual stuff, a casting line, cost, type, subtype, all that jazz. But look here. Here's where things start to get really interesting. Once you summon a creature into the arena, he will fight and take actions until he is destroyed. Brogan Bloodstone has a life value of 11, meaning he can take 11 damage before he's killed. He also has 4 armor to help shield him from damage. Not only that, but Brogan Bloodstone also has a powerful Vorpal Blade attack that deals 4 attack dice of damage. It's unavoidable, meaning it will bypass a creature's defense and even pierces up to 3 points of armor. That's pretty amazing. Brogan also has a series of traits that make him unique and interesting. We can see here that he has a lightning +2, which means that enemies using a lightning attack will roll 2 extra attack dice against him, as well as add 2 to their effect die rolls. His metal armor conducts electricity really well and makes him especially vulnerable to lightning attacks. That's not good for Brogan Bloodstone. He's also legendary, meaning that there can be only 1 copy of this spell in the arena at a time. This is to symbolize the fact that in Mage Wars universe, Brogan Bloodstone is a real person, and 2 mages wouldn't be able to summon him twice to the same battle, just like you wouldn't be able to invite the same person twice to a party. Summoning creatures is a tough thing to do, and so creatures require full action to cast, and they only have a range of 0 to 0. So that means if our priestess here is going to summon Broken Bloodstone, it will take her full action. So we flip over her action marker. Broken Bloodstone starts off in the same zone as the priestess, and we give him an action marker set to the inactive side. This keeps mages from summoning a powerful creature into the arena and then having them immediately attack you. Next round, Broken Bloodstone will be ready to move around and attack. If you've seen our video about Action Stage, you know how important it is to summon creatures. If you're not summoning creatures, you're going to have a lot less actions than your opponent does. If you only have your mage is going to be the only one who can move. But if you have your mage and all of these creatures summoned, you're going to get to move your mage and those creatures. The creature spells add so much to the game. There's so many different types and traits for each of the creatures. For instance, there's fast creatures, there's flying creatures, slow creatures. There's creatures that are incorporeal and can't be touched by normal means unless an ethereal spell is cast upon them or something like that. It's amazing the amount of combinations you can have. And if you really want to know more about the traits and the creatures, you can take a look in the Codex section found in the back of the rulebook. But right now, I want to talk about how you can actually summon buildings and structures into the arena. You can summon in temples or even a mountain or tall grass. You can actually change the structure of the arena. These are the Conjurations. The arena is not just a place for battle. It's a real location where mages can create massive structures. They can create towering plants. They can turn the ground itself into a weapon. They can conjure mighty walls of stone or even swirling portals to another dimension. A conjuration is a spell that creates an object in the arena, and that object can be destroyed. It's a lot like a creature spell. It has life, it can be attacked, it can be damaged, and is eventually destroyed. It can even have armor. However, there's a lot of differences between conjurations and creatures. For instance, conjurations can take actions, so they don't even get an action marker. They also have a few other differences. For example, most conjurations target a zone and stay attached to that zone, like this mana flower cast by the Beastmaster. This mana flower is also zone exclusive, which means that if I wanted to cast another conjuration in this zone, like this layer, I wouldn't be able to. This is because the layer is also a zone exclusive conjuration. The mana flower is zone exclusive, and the layer is zone exclusive. Not only that, but no zone can have two conjurations with the same name in it at one time. For instance, I couldn't have two mana crystals in the same zone. Walls are the exception because they aren't really in zones, but rather they exist on the border between zones. But we'll get into walls in another video. A few conjurations, like this Tanglevine, target an object instead. The Tanglevine stays attached to the Firebrand Imp here. However, an object may never have multiple conjurations with the same name attached to it. So I wouldn't be able to put two Tanglevines on this creature. There is an amazing amount of conjurations. There's so many. For instance, there's spawn points. Spawn points act like factories. Factories can actually summon creatures on their own. This happens during the deployment phase. There's even walls. Walls can block opponents off at certain junctures between zones. Walls can even attack creatures, like the Wall of Fire. If a creature tries to pass through a wall of fire, there's a good chance that that creature is going to burn. However, we'll talk about spawn points and walls in future videos. Right now, let's move on to the last spell type, Enchantments. The hidden enchantment system in Mage Wars really separates it from any other game. All enchantments are placed face down in the arena and remain hidden until they have an effect in the game. This allows for lots of fun, tricks, and surprises. Every move you make when there are hidden enchantments around is a tough decision and a calculated risk. You really don't know what's going to happen. Enchantments are different than any of the other spell types in the game for so many different reasons. First off, all enchantments are cast face down. We call them hidden enchantments. Your opponent won't know what you've cast until you choose to reveal it. You'll also notice that I played this enchantment on my Timberwolf. That's because enchantments are attached to the thing that they are enchanting. That might be a zone or a creature or your mage or maybe even a conjuration. In this example, I'm attaching it to my Timberwolf. You can just picture the enchantment swirling with magical energy, overflowing the object that it is actually enchanting. There's also no limit to the number of enchantments that a certain creature, object, or zone can have. However, there is something you have to keep in mind. You can't have more than one of the same enchantment attached to the same target at the same time. You can see here that I've got Bear Strength and a Rhino Hide on my Timberwolf. Since these are different spells, they can both stay on. I couldn't have 2 Bear Strengths or 2 Rhino Hides, but a Bear Strength and a Rhino Hide, totally legit. Enchantments have another difference between other spells. They have 2 costs. They have a casting cost and they have a reveal cost. The casting cost, which is indicated with the closed eye icon, is always 2. That way, no matter what enchantment you're casting, your opponent doesn't know as you place it face down what enchantment it is. However, when you choose to reveal it, there's the additional cost. And the reveal cost is indicated with the open eye icon. Now, when you reveal it, you can choose not to pay the reveal cost. And when you do that, the spell doesn't take effect. It's automatically destroyed and put into your discard pile. Unfortunately, there may be a time where you can't pay the reveal cost. You reveal the card and you can't afford it. You don't have enough mana in your mana supply. Then the card is wasted and it is also thrown into your discard pile. Let's take my Timberwolf for example. I've decided to cast an enchantment on him. So first, I pay the 2 mana and mark that on my status board. Now, when I want to have the enchantment have an effect on the game, I flip the enchantment over. This is a Bear Strength, which will cost me 3 to reveal it. So now I pay 3 mana. The effect of the Bear Strength is to give my Timberwolf the melee +2 trait. That melee +2 trait is now in effect. Now you're probably asking yourself, when can I reveal an enchantment? The answer is really easy. Whenever you want, with some minor exceptions. You cannot interrupt an event or an action that's already taking place. For instance, you can't stop a creature mid-movement. You can do it before its movement or after its movement. In this way, revealing an enchantment is a free action. It doesn't require you activating a creature or flipping over an action marker. Let's go through what it means when we say anytime, as long as you do not interrupt an action or event. First, you can reveal at the end of any phase. So let's say it's the end of the reset phase. I can reveal this Essence Drain on an enemy Timberwolf, so that my opponent now has to pay upkeep on it during the very next phase, the upkeep phase. You could also choose to reveal an enchantment right after an opponent has activated his creature, but before he's chosen his actions for the turn. For example, my enemy activates his Timberwolf, so I can reveal that I've placed Chains of Agony on the Timberwolf. So now that Timberwolf will be hurt if he chooses to move. This will severely limit the actions my enemy may want to take with that creature this turn. It's all pretty awesome. We'll go into the 8 steps to making an attack later in a different video. But for now, I just want to say that you can reveal an enchantment between any of those 8 steps. For instance, let's say this Firebrand Imp comes in to attack my Timberwolf. My opponent declares the attack, and then I have no defense against it. So I move through the Avoid Attack step. So now, I could reveal that I have a Rhino Hide on my Timberwolf. I do so. My opponent is already locked into attacking me, but my damage will be reduced due to the added armor value of the enchantment. You can also reveal an enchantment right after it's been cast. So after I've resolved this by spending my action and paying its cost, I may now pay the reveal cost and flip over the enchantment. However, you may never interrupt an action in order to reveal an enchantment. For example, this Warlock has placed an enchantment of some kind on the Timberwolf. I don't know what the enchantment is. I activate the wolf by flipping over his action marker. The Warlock could reveal the enchantment now before I have a chance to do anything, but he waits. Now while I'm moving, the Warlock cannot reveal the enchantment, not during my movement. He has to wait until I've finished with this action to have another chance. But now that I've moved into the Warlock zone, he has a chance to reveal it. Again, he decides to wait. I decide to declare an attack on the Warlock with my Timberwolf. After declaring the Warlock, now he decides it is the time to reveal the enchantment that he's hidden all this time. And we see that it's Agony. My wolf is going to roll 2 fewer dice in this attack. If the Warlock had revealed his enchantment earlier, I might not have moved in to attack him, knowing that my attack now is a penalty. He waited until the moment when it would be most absolutely harmful to me. Now, those are all the times in which you can choose to reveal an enchantment, but sometimes you have no choice. You must reveal an enchantment because the enchantment is what we call a mandatory enchantment. Mandatory enchantments are special enchantments. They have a trigger which forces them to reveal. Then they have an effect on the game, and then they are discarded. If they are revealed at the improper time, they're immediately discarded. They were just wasted. You can tell these are mandatory enchantments because of the red icon next to the casting cost. That's the reveal cost. The reveal cost is red. On the enchantments that are not mandatory, it's blue. But mandatory enchantments, the reveal cost, it's red. The great thing about mandatory enchantments is you just set them up and let them do their thing. For instance, when this Firebrand Imp walks into a zone and attacks my wolf, I can reveal that I've got block on him and the attack is immediately canceled. I was able to protect my creature with a mandatory enchantment, block. Now, one more important thing. You must keep the order in which you played enchantments intact. Why, you ask? Well, because certain enchantments have certain triggers for when they can be revealed, and their timing matters. It's important. For instance, in the last example, if this Firebrand Imp were to attack my Timberwolf, and I would have to reveal the block enchantment. It says so on the card. I have to reveal it when a creature attacks. But let's say I didn't reveal the enchantment. I forgot. And maybe later on, I play another enchantment on my Timberwolf, and I was attacked again. I could try to pretend like the block was the last enchantment I played. Well, my opponent would know that this was not the case and that I was cheating because he could see my stack of enchantment cards. The block would have to be the most recent enchantment that I played, but it wouldn't be. So, it's important to keep your stack straight and keep in mind the order in which they were cast. Mandatory enchantments will tell you right on the card when they must be revealed. This can be when a creature is being attacked, when a spell is being cast, or something else entirely. Just remember, it tells you right on the card when you're supposed to reveal it. You can always look at your own enchantments to remind yourself if you need to. But now let's talk about some of the coolest mandatory enchantments in the game. We haven't talked about them yet. We're talking about mandatory enchantments that are traps. Traps are a subtype of mandatory enchantments. They normally target a zone and you stay attached to that zone. Usually you can only cast them on a zone without enemy creatures in it. These spells have a very special trigger, and that's whenever an enemy enters the zone. So this Warlock has no idea what this card is. Maybe it's a volunteer enchantment that will buff his enemy's creatures. Maybe it's just a decoy enchantment. But maybe, just maybe it's a trap! The Warlock has now set off this Hellfire trap, which will do him damage and then get discarded. If a trap gets revealed for any other reason than a creature entering the zone, it still gets revealed, but it has no effect. It's wasted and it's put into the discard pile. But that's the essence of the enchantments. You try to learn new crazy combinations and you find out whether they're voluntary or mandatory, and you learn how to trick your opponents round after round. Well, we're done for now. Join us next time when we learn all about how you make an attack. It's an important part of Mage Wars, and I hope you come in. I'm Alan Gerding. I'll see you in the arena.